They're classy too, man. I can wear this on a date.
People who are most successful are the ones who don't just give up.
We have officially partnered up with Albemarle Paper Supply. Albemarle Paper Supply services paper products within the cities of Charlotte, Concord, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Salisbury, Morrisville, and smaller cities in between. From fiber, plastic, and foam bowls, paper towels, tissues, napkins, takeout containers, gloves, to janitorial supplies, and much, much more, Albemarle Paper is dedicated to bring you the paper goods you need. Customers can pick up products directly at Albemarle Paper's warehouse located at 735 Henson Street in Albemarle, North Carolina, or products can be delivered to you at your business doorstep. Today's live is also brought to you by CL Driving School. CL Driving School is a truck driving school located in Indian Trail, offering programs for both commercial Class A and Class B licenses. With your choice between automatic and manual transmission, their classes consist of small group trainings with one instructor per truck. Training is available on weekdays, weekends, and evenings. Not only do you receive classes, but opportunities for sponsorship programs, recruiter visits, and job placement assistance also occurs. CL Driving School is also trilingual with classes offered in English, Spanish, and Arabic. Register for classes today by calling 704-821-1111. Hello and welcome to a very, very exciting episode of the MLS Corner. Boys, what a day we have had. What a day I have had, honestly, because today has, as soon as I got that information about Miguel being sacked, I'm telling you guys, I have been nonstop, from phone conversations, from DM conversations, from conversations with a whole bunch of people trying to get the right information, from being blown up on my phone, from people that I haven't heard from years asking me about Miguel Angel Ramirez sacking. And it has been a day. I'd like to introduce my very first guest today. We've got Lee from CLTFC Fan TV. My man, how are you today?
Man, I'm like you. I am wore the out, right, man? It's just people. Overall, I do not mind it, but it's a lot, right? Trying to keep up with the messages, people pinging you, calling you, texting you, DMing you, all that stuff, man. Facebook messages even hit me up on my personal page. It's like, whoa. And like you said, man, it's people I ain't even heard from years. Like, that guy still owes me a beer from last month, and whatever. It's been a fun, interesting day is one way to put it. The only person that hasn't texted me yet is Miggy himself.
Yeah, for real, man. Listen, I'm going to let you guys know right now, I've reached out to some people in Miguel's camp, and so I've yet to gotten a response from any of them specifically, because I think it's really important. Like, well, hold on. Let me introduce my man first before we go into it. I'm so sorry. I've got my man Brian today with me. Brian, tell us a little bit about who you are, and just that, man. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah. So I'm Brian. You can find me on Twitter at BA Mauer Media. I do a little bit of fan writing. Specifically, I've been a guest writer for Charlotte FC Insider, and just been a fan of the club. I'm a season ticket holder. Me and my wife are season ticket holders as well, and just have been following the team since pretty close to the beginning and before, and was really excited about being on the show tonight. Had watched rewatched Seattle last night, written a bunch of notes, and scrapped them. Like when I woke up
now, man. What's the point?
Right, man. Everything that we had planned, it was like,
yep.
Yeah.
Appreciate you having on, man. And just to a point that I wanted to get out there as well is that, it's very difficult to, just from where I'm standing, a perspective of trying to find out what's actually true and what's not true, because there's stuff that the club is going to come out and say to benefit the club. There's stuff that Miguel's going to come out and say to benefit Miguel Angel Ramirez's camp, right? And I think it's very important for us to try to stay, at least for me, to try to give you the most up-to-date, the information that's most accurate. And if I 100% don't think it is, I'll at least tell you that. You know what I'm saying? Especially when we're putting in so much work to try to give you guys the right information. You agree with me?
Yeah, I mean, it is a fine line, right? You obviously, you start reading stuff, people are posting stuff, and like you said, right? I mean, there's so many group messages and everything else, and everybody's just feeding us info, and we're finding out info on our own, and trying to weed out what is bullshit and what is legit can be kind of tough. Top man, you've kind of made yourself the go-to guy now, so I know it's a little harder for you from a fan TV perspective. We're still speculate, right? That seems to be a good word to use today. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to you, man, for trying to drive down into the info, the source, and make sure that it's legit for everybody. And
listen, you have no idea how many rocks I have turned today to try to make sure that all the information that I provide with you tonight is information that I feel is factual, right? Versus just giving you just some random thing that I've seen on Twitter. Right?
Did you turn any rocks over in front of Target though? Because I feel like there might have been some really good information under those rocks.
Oh man, I did go to Target to see if I could find, somebody that could give me some info, but unfortunately, no.
Did you say you took a picture with somebody outside Target today?
That would have been the best thing that could have happened to me today.
Right? Yeah.
Anyways, so let's get right into it, man. Tell me about your initial kind of feelings listening that Miguel Angel Ramirez was sacked, and I want to hear from everybody in the comments as well. So I guess I'll start off with you, Brian. Talk to me.
I think at first, I was definitely surprised, shocked. I just thought it was at first. Yeah, I just didn't think it was gonna happen. Like this, I figured we were at least gonna see a whole season. Especially from the words that we'd seen early on. Like some of the words were like project, right? I feel like project was a big word that Miguel liked to use in terms of developmental project. This idea of sort of what he saw the team growing into, and the words around the team too were like, we're building a foundation, we're building this developmental program that we can really create stars here and things like that. And so those are like a lot of the messaging coming from the club. And so while they also like said, the front office said things like, we're going to have, we're shooting for a playoff spot and things like that, I felt like there still was a way more long-term foundational goal in mind at the root of all of this. And that's where Miguel really fit in. And so this firing for me seems to be like, they're no longer just thinking about the long-term, and it's like the short-term goal of making the playoffs is like way higher on the list than initially, like that's the only thing I could think of as to why, because like for me, like this is not the patient route anymore. Like otherwise he would still be there.
I mean, when Miggy first came in, right? I mean, they kind of started dialing back the playoff idea, right? I mean, I think when they did the announcement in Charlotte, Gilmore, or wherever we were at, they kind of dialed that back.
Well, I don't think it necessarily happened there, because if you remember the very first Miguel event that we went to, at the very end, he said, I believe that this team will make playoffs its very first year, and the crowd went crazy, right?
Yeah, you're right.
And then it went into, his famous quotes about estamos jodidos, right? But I kind of want your initial take, Lee, of how the sacking of Miguel today.
Yeah, so, I come out of the gym, because I've been working out, getting buff and everything for the summer. And I check my phone, and there's a message from you, right? And basically just saying, like, Mars has been let go. And I was like, holy shit. So my first initial thought was, what the hell is going on at the front office? What's Tepper doing? What the hell is this guy up to, right? Because you automatically think, right? We lost Mark. We lost Nick Kelly. We lost some key players behind the scenes in the front office. And I was like, this is just going to be Tepper written all over it. But then as the days kind of progressed and start reading through the lines and just kind of piecing some stuff together, and I'm probably going to take a bunch of shit for this, but I don't know if this is a Tepper thing. I think this is a little bit of both. I feel like Miggy kind of started writing on the wall back when we're screwed, right, to kind of take some heat off of himself. It's definitely not an on-field issue because I'd say overall our performances have been pretty decent. I mean, a lot of people are saying we're hitting above our weight, but, again, we've mentioned it many times. If you go look at average expansion teams, we're average, right? So, yeah, I was shocked, but not, it was like something that's kind of like, I knew it was going to happen, but damn, like, why today? Especially after we played Seattle, because I thought we played pretty well against Seattle. I think the second half was one of the better halves I've seen us play, even though they scored 2 on us that half. I still, but then you start talking about his comments after the Red Bull game, like that was the best game we played. And he's not Harry Potter, and it's like, I mean, the Red Bull games was the best game that we have played, and the Harry Potter comments, and I don't know, man. Now reading that some of the players have turned and that sort of thing, it's like, it's really hard to decipher what's true.
It is, man. It is. And then I'm going to get into a little bit about just some of the conversations that I've had today and what I want to share with you guys in terms of what I've been able to find out, right? Mm-hmm. So here's something that I'm almost certain is a fact, right? And that I've been able to confirm is that Miguel Angel Ramirez has a whole PR team behind him. There are people that run his social accounts. That anytime a player does an interview, they send him this information. I don't know if they go through the specifics of it or he watches all of it, but that I can confirm to you that does happen. And sorry, I'm just looking through my notes. And a lot of the things that we've seen in terms of Miguel's camp that has come out is for a perception thing, right? If you take a look back at that quote that he said at the beginning of the season where we're screwed.
That started it.
Yeah, it kind of set the expectations in terms of what we wanted to expect from this season, right?
It definitely changed the tone, right? Because I feel like up until he said that, we as a fan base, at least, were really excited. The club's been telling us we're going to make the playoffs. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then we're screwed comes out. And go ahead. I'll let you finish your comments, Jorge.
No, yeah. I mean, just going through that, like some of the stuff that's come out that he's done, I feel like it's genuinely him being a good guy. And the other thing is more of a PR brand perspective, which kind of lets you know that Miguel always had the upper hand when it came to anything he did with the club, right? Especially because he's so loved by a lot of the fans, right?
Well, he definitely won the fans over. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Lee, go for it. I
was going to say, like, his PR team, if that was what we're calling him, I mean, they definitely got him to be on the side of the fans, right? I mean, obviously, it was good to see him out there after the games with the fans and doing that kind of stuff. I expect that from every manager. I expect that from every player. I mean, we're out there screaming and yelling for 90 minutes. We're tailgating, screaming and yelling for God knows how long and baking in the sun, right? And overall, he was a personable guy. Even when you talk to him off the record, just bullshitting him at the press conferences, he was a nice guy, right? You could just tell he seemed to be nice, but I don't know, something seems off, man.
Yeah, man. And this is where the timeline of things that some of these things that I haven't been able to confirm 100%, but I believe align up just with all the conversations that I've had today, right? Mm-hmm. The first one is that Miguel lost the front of office. That's the first thing that happened. They disagreed on a lot of things. I believe Miguel wanted more control and say into what was fed to the media, what type of players were brought in, and some of the players that he pitched or he requested were shut down to him. Like, and you could tell today too, when I asked Zoran today about the disconnect between the front office and Miguel Angel Ramirez as a coach, he said he disagreed with me, that there was a great relationship. Honestly, I don't buy that at all. Even people that I've talked to within the club have told me the same thing. I don't buy it because I have a very strong source or some people that I've talked to that I know that relationship between Miguel and Zoran was almost non-existent.
Man, you could tell that, man. It was even when he was asked that in that presser, and hey, we love the shipping department, by the way. Even in the presser today, right? You could tell when that question was asked, the body language of Zoran changed, and he just said the PR mouthpiece, man.
Yep.
Well,
So
and then what if
go ahead.
if it's not a disconnect between him and between Miguel and Zoran, and it's also not because of performance, like then what is then what is it, right? There's not many other avenues for him to be fired.
That's why I don't think this is a Tepper issue. I think if anything, it's a Zoran and Miggy issue, right?
Yeah.
And Zoran being there pretty much from day one, right? This is his baby. This is his reputation. This is him moving forward into bigger and better things down the road, right? That if this doesn't work, he's got a lot riding on this. And I'm sure he's got plenty of say to Tepper, and Tepper relies on him heavily. But overall, I don't think this is a Tepper decision. I think this is more of a Zoran Miggy falling out decision.
I think to a degree that's true, because the second portion of things that I've seen just based on some timelines is that he lost a lot of key figures in the locker room. And that goes into answering this question as well. Did he lose people in the locker room? I'm one text away from confirming to you that is actually true. And that's very alarming, because the perception that we get is that Miguel's a very loved guy. And that's the perception I've had. But, just speaking with a lot of different people, that's really a red flag in terms of the coach that we have or had, right? I mean, one of the people that I've spoken with told me he's been losing players since the Charleston days. So I think a mixture of
Charleston days?
Since the Charleston days.
I mean, that's early, man.
That's very, very early, right? So it's
how do you lose them so quick, right? I mean, what, 3 weeks?
Yeah. And listen, this is information that I've gotten. Like I've said, some of this I cannot prove to 100%.
No. We get that. Right?
It aligns up, right? So it was a combination of Miguel losing the front office, then losing key players that actually led to this decision. Even if you hear Zoran today, he said it himself, right? He said it was a decision that we had to make, right? And so those two things, I believe, led to the sacking of Miguel, because there's no way no one's buying that this is a performance-based decision, because we've been competitive. We're 2 points away from a playoff spot. We play the style of brand that Charlotte always promised us, which is that possession-based attacking football, right?
And I mean, MLS pundits, like the MLS at large, was starting to really respect. I mean, after the Seattle game especially, like MLS pundits were starting to say, like, man, they're competing, they're pushing even teams like Seattle in Seattle. Like, so they were earning respect at that level. Some people, I know Matt Doyle today was like, this was a dark horse for one of my dark horses for coach of the year. Like, that's why, like, again, the performance thing just does not add up at all. So
there's some questions going on about this, Carroll's and that sort of thing. So I don't know 100% if Carroll is the player that we're talking about here, right? I mean, if I was a bet man and they throw out the word DP, I would say it's probably him, since he's been here the longest, right? But, some rumors that I've been hearing, and again, rumors only, so take it as you will. I mean, there's some senior players in the squad too, right, that have kind of fallen away from Mars too. And so I don't want to put this all on one player saying, that's it, I'm not coming back, I'm not going to play for you if this coach is here or this manager is here. I feel like it's been a collective few, some of the bigger guys in the squad that we would consider, more senior, the ones that we like to see play. I'm not saying Kalina either, because I haven't even heard his name get brought up in any of the conversations we've had today. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, if that's the case, and then the battle with Zoran, at this point, Miggy, sorry, buddy, you're going to lose this all day long.
Yeah, and honestly, too, I think the club did a very, very poor job today in that press conference of how things were handled, right? And just speaking a little bit on that press conference, right? If you're going to hold a press conference and half of the questions that we ask, there's no comment, this leaves other people to make more of a speculation, right? Yeah. If there was something that Miguel has done, why don't you come out and tell us? What is the reason, or what is the thought process behind hiding information that could, I don't want to be Camp Miguel or Camp Charlotte FC. I want to be Camp give me the information and
Yeah, I want Camp
So-
honest. I mean, I feel like that press conference today was a waste of time for everybody. Like we
Yeah.
tuned in, right? We were ready to with our questions, and pretty much it was the same answer. Like, we don't want to talk about it. We're not going to speculate. We're not going to tell you, basically. And to me, and I told the club this too. I said, personally, you guys were better off just not having a press conference. Just release your statement and hide behind it. I think the press conference today has just made it that much worse.
It has
That's
been.
how
If anything, it's led to more speculation, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Now we're speculating.
Are you speculating that we're speculating? Because we might not be speculating, right? Unless we're speculating. It's annoying. Obviously, if there's some politics behind it, right? The club can't just come out and say, right, this, and this, and this, right? But to me, I feel like the press conference was completely deflected.
This is what I think the club is banking on as well. Like, the club doesn't want to get involved in putting in their gloves, to try to turn it into a he said, she said battle where it's going to be what the club has to say versus what Miguel has to say, which I get that. But there's a point in this that you need to come out and speak to people. I think the club is banking on information in the future, in the next week or 2 weeks or the next month, that will be leaked out, that will confirm these rumors that we're hearing from the beginning now, where Miguel lost the locker room, where, like, one of the things that I've seen as well that I have yet to confirm is the way Miguel strategically has good relationships with people in the media, has good relationships with people in social media for the club. And then outside of that, there's relationships that he has that aren't the greatest, that people have said that he isn't the person that he portrays to be, right? That all right there is speculation.
Yeah. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
No, you're up. You good.
Yeah, 100%, man. Again, right? If we had beat Seattle, I still think this decision would have happened, right? I think it would have been made, and I still think it would have been made this week. We got international break, right? So it gives the players a chance to kind of get in, and even what's his name, Christian, right? The new manager. He's got a good degree behind him, right? He's familiar with the MLS. He's been with Man City, Patrick Vieira, all these heavy hitters, right? The English national squad. So I'm not worried about him stepping in. And I'm not even worried about what the rest of MLS thinks of us, to be honest. They can all kiss my ass, right? All of them, right? Because there's going to be trolls all over the place. I'm more worried about the continuation of progression on the pitch, right? We got we know that we're going to get at least one more DP. I'd be curious to see our formation and how we line up now. That's going to be interesting.
Right.
As long as we're competitive and we're shooting on goal and we're not always relying on Kalina to save us, I'd be happy.
Right. But then again, how does this affect, and I want to hear from people in the comments as well, our shots of actually having a successful season, right? Because, to be honest with you, this was something that I've heard a little bit about in the past, that it just seemed to me too far-fetched to believe, right? And I talked to Brian about this already. Yeah. But then here we are. Miguel is sacked, right? And one of my kind of defending Miguel in terms of, like, why would they do this is, man, like, we're playing good football. We're staying within those playoff spots. I see Charlotte competing for 7th place. You know what I'm saying? I don't think the team is good enough to be a top 4 team, but I also don't think the team was bad, even from the beginning, right? And so with losing a piece like Miguel, how much does that derail, or how much does that kind of set Charlotte FC a little bit backwards in terms of its progress?
I feel like you said, that the couple weeks, having like the 2 weeks off, definitely benefits the team. But I feel like, there's just almost no way there's not some sort of derailing, at least slightly, for a bit. It's just got to be kind of jarring for all the players. A lot of these, especially, we have a lot of young players who are dealing with this kind of situation for the first time. Like Ben, like this is the first time he's dealing with like this kind of controversy. I'm sure he got like a lot of like calls and reactions and stuff. And so I think there's a really good chance that it takes a little bit, but I mean, this guy has a good pedigree too. Like Christian has him and Patrick Vieira, like NYCFC the year before they got there was their first expansion year. They had like 37 points. They then were like he was the assistant coach for Patrick Vieira. The next 3 years they had over 50 plus points and they made the playoffs every year. So there's still a chance, I'd say.
But, I mean, Christian's been here before Mars showed up, before anybody showed up. He was the first coach for us to be here, right? He was Miggy's right-hand man. He was the second in charge. I mean, philosophy-wise, he's well aware of what they've been doing and, you know, the issues that they've had. So there's no learning curve there, right?
Right.
The thing is now is, are the players going to believe that he's the man to take them forward? Now, if he can keep those guys or bring up the morale in the locker room, assuming that Miggy lost the locker room, then I don't see an issue with this, right? I mean, the players are the players. They're training on whatever they're training on, right? Obviously, they're not training on corner kicks. Maybe this would be a new thing for us, right? But you know what I mean? It's like
this next month will also tell us whether those things are true or not, right? Where people are saying that Miguel, that some players were underperforming under Miguel, right? Okay, well, if they're under Latanzio for a month and they're able to be, I guess, quote unquote, more free to play their style, right? Is the team going to improve? Are we still going to see a competitive Charlotte FC?
I think we're going to just see what we've been seeing, right? A new team, learning to play together, some chemistry. We're going to have good moments. We're going to have some bad moments. Somebody asked her about Fuchs being injured. He actually played in about the 70th minute against Seattle. So, no, he's not injured and was playing. You know, would we have liked to see Miguel have a chance now that we got kind of our team together, right? I mean, we got Jaws, Vargas, and those kind of things. Would things have been different? Of course they will be, right? But I mean, even against Seattle, Vargas didn't have the best game. But again, this all takes time, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, we're an expansion team. We're one position, 1 point off of the playoffs. Like, I don't know. Again, I don't think that. Well, we know this isn't a performance issue. We know that. We know it, right? Everybody knows that, right? The club can say whatever they want to say, or, you know, the PR people can say whatever they want. But it's not
my issue with the club as well, bro. Like, you're just digging a bigger hole for yourself when you see, you know, Tom Glick leave, when you see Nick Kelly leave, when you see Mark Nichols leave, when you see Miguel Angel Ramirez leave. You know what? Some of these cases may all be different situations.
100%.
From a perspective of what we're seeing, it doesn't seem likely, you know?
And that's kind of that's kind of why I felt like is concerning for, because like, so I got a lot of texts today from casual like soccer fans who weren't really following, you know, Charlotte super closely before, and like this might be like their first, second, or third media interaction with the team, like new potential fans that could come in. And I feel like there has been a decent amount of just chaotic media about the club. I think that's one of my bigger concerns. Is just like, as the fan base potentially grows, it just seems like there's been a ton of just kind of, to be honest, like chaos in terms of like the switching around of positions and stuff. And I know they even tried to like say like this is normal in world soccer and world football and stuff like that. But I don't know, man. It seems like quite a lot of changes.
It
like,
is,
right? I mean, you're sitting there at Tepper, man, and you're thinking to yourself, what the fuck is going on here, right? You can't get the Panthers to win. You know, they're shit, apparently. Not a Panther fan. Don't care, right? Charlotte, on the other hand, right? Hey, we promote Nick. Nick hangs out for a couple of weeks. He takes off. He does his thing. All right, now here we come with Miggy, right? I mean, there's some big moves that have happened in the front office. And, yeah, I mean, sitting on this side of the fence, it's like there's only one common denominator at this point, right? And it's Tepper himself. Right. But the way I understand the structure, though, at least on the Charlotte side, is Tepper's more hands off, right? He's more involved in the Panthers and doing the crap over there than he is in Charlotte. He's kind of left that to Zorn. And again, that goes back to my point before. Zorn's got his reputation in the football world on the line. And if this doesn't work out for him, I mean, there's no telling how that could affect his career, right?
Right.
And I mean, he's definitely made his money. I'm sure he's got enough where he can sit back and just say, screw it, I'm going to go on a yacht in Greece and enjoy my summers and we'll just watch it. But
right. And then I want to answer this question, but you made me think of something really interesting before we get into this. This is a really good question as well. But you know what? And I think that's part of the reason, like, you know, recently Zoran came out and did a press conference, right?
Right after that Harry Potter comment, right? Wasn't it?
It was right before. It was right
yeah.
before the Harry Potter comment. And he came on. Yes, obviously he was talking about Chelsea, but at the end of the day, I think he wanted to address any concerns and maybe change the narrative of what Miguel has been talking about as well, right? Because
100%.
it's one thing to see your sporting director talk about, you know, the spending habits and the ticket prices don't reflect in terms of salary. And then a whole nother message from Miguel coming out and saying, hey, I'm not Harry Potter. I can't do magic, right? And then also Miguel's press conference against Red Bull gave me a taste of sarcasm in terms of how he was speaking as well, where you obviously just lost a match, which most of us, in my opinion, agreed it wasn't a great game by the club.
Terrible game.
And he comes out and says that this is the performance he's most proud of, right? So there was obviously a big disconnect. There's obviously a big power struggle between Zoran and Miguel at the end of the day. There's stuff that we know from Miguel's camp that's true, or from Charlotte FC's camp that's true. I also am interested to hear what the Miguel camp has to say about certain things and whether they want to confirm or deny these things. But I think the club's approach is let this information start coming out itself, you know, versus let's get our gloves, let's put on some gloves and get dirty.
It's definitely going to be interesting when Mickey's camp starts releasing stuff, right? Because then it's going to, I feel it's going to get a little gritty, you know, and it'll be, I mean, from my perspective, it's going to be kind of fun to watch in a twisted way.
Right. Yeah. Right. And this is a great question by Juani Fierro. Do you guys think Titi and Franco will stay their loners now that Mars is gone?
I honestly don't think it's going to affect the players that we have now, right? I mean, again, right? I'm sure they built some sort of relationship with Christian, right? They've got to. He's the assistant coach, right? He's there. You know, basically, he was Miggy's right-hand man. I don't think it's going to affect anything in regards to player contracts. You know, if anything, no, I don't think it's going to affect it.
I think it'll just be like if they perform well, they'll probably there's a chance because they both have purchase options too, right? I think they both have purchase options. So I mean, if they perform well, they'll probably exercise those options. If not, probably loan them back or they'll just be gone. And I think the one thing I'm interested in is whether or not TT gets more shots at actually playing the 10 role.
That's a fair point.
Like that, I feel like that's the one thing. Like they had this whole thing about TT being the 10 and all this stuff preseason, and I get that like his form hadn't been great, and it seemed like he hadn't been similar to Franco and Jordi Alcivar. It's just like they're taking a little time to adjust to the league. But I mean, I also feel like TT never really played the role that they had advertised him at pretty much the whole season so far.
It'd be interesting for the players that haven't really got a shout, you know, what their thoughts on it. I mean, look at Jan, right? I think Jan should be starting over McCoon any day, right? And then, you know, Sergio, I mean, he was our first ever player. You know, there was a reason he was signed as one of our first players. You know, maybe he sees more playing time. You know, it's going to be, it's going to be interesting for these guys that kind of have been penciled in first all season, how that dynamic's going to shift.
100%. And players maybe that we haven't seen too often, are they going to get a chance? Are we going to see more Jan or Anton Walks or guys like this, you know? I
mean, Walks, when he was with Atlanta, was stellar, man. I thought it was a pretty big pickup for us when we got him. And I know he's been injured and he had the green card thing where he had to go back and get that sorted. But I mean, he played one time, I think, for us in Greenville. I think that's the only time I remember him starting.
Walks?
Yeah.
Oh no, he started at was it Union? They did a back five at Union.
Did he start at Union?
Yeah. He was out. That was the one. He looked pretty. It was not good. I mean, that game was just not good in general, but like I think he was out of position for the first goal.
The first goal, you're right. Yeah.
This is a good question too. Like, if we're debating if this was the right move or not, honestly, from a shock factor, this looks like a horrible move. Yeah. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're losing out on probably a really good coach. But then again, when you start seeing what's coming out from the club, if all these things are true, where the players aren't bought into what Miguel is trying to portray, where he doesn't have a good relationship with the front office, long term, I feel like this will be detrimental, right? It'll, in terms of, maybe if we would continue to compete for a playoff spot, if we're going to still look competitive, right? And I think the answer to this question is only time will tell, right?
Well, let's put a different spin on this. Maybe Miggy wanted out, right? Maybe this is the time of the year where Europe's winding down. Maybe somebody approached him, 6-7 weeks ago and was like, hey, look, what would you be interested to come be our manager, right? Come back over to Europe and show what you can do here. And
that's something that I've heard too, that Miguel has given off this perception that he wanted to get fired. Obviously, that's one of those radical things where, like, you know what, like, no one's really talked to me about that. Well, they have, but I'm like, okay, like, this doesn't seem too in line, but it could also be true, It seemed he wanted out at the beginning of the season, right? Didn't get that, stuck with the club, and maybe he's seeing this as an opportunity, as a way to him. In my perspective, if everything that's been told to us is correct, Miguel just did a checkmate after that press conference today, because he leaves Charlotte as a guy that, a lot of us like, who had us playing well and just wasn't given the resources to perform well and was let go. And a lot of this narrative has to do with Miguel, and also has to do with how the club has approached what's been happening.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The thing I keep going back to is what all has gone on in that front office, right? And other than Tepper himself, the only common denominator I keep coming back to is Zorn. And I'm not trying to pin it all on Zorn by any means. I'm just trying to think through, like, if I was a fly on the wall, what logically could have happened along these last couple of months, right? From the comments, we were screwed, all the way up to the Harry Potter comment. Miguel was constantly dropping little nuggets in his pressers to kind of say, look, if we fuck this up, it's not because of me. Right? It was like he was always, was it like, I don't know, was he deflecting blame? I don't know, right? Again, I enjoyed Mars. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great coach. I think he's got a decent future ahead of him. But then you look back to where he came from, independent Inte, right?
But see, one of the reasons too that some of this stuff aligns is, his stint at Internacional was 3 months.
National, that's what I was going for, yeah.
Right? He was signed by the club in March of 2021 and was let go in June of 2021. He signed with Charlotte FC July 2021. First MLS match for us was in February. He got let go in May 31st. So that's like a 3-month time span as well. So like, there has to be some sort of correlation. Like, there's no way it's both the Internacional camp and just Charlotte FC screwing up Miguel's chances, right? I feel like that is a little bit of a telltale as well as to what's going on, right?
Yeah, I remember when we signed him, right? The tweets, comments from those folks were coming over like, he's not going to make it, he's not going to cut it, yada yada yada, right? And obviously we defended him the best we could. Going off of his record before, but yeah, is this his MO? If it is, he probably needs to cut it out if he wants to have a long career in coaching. That's for sure.
Right. And this question from Machete: how does this affect getting another DP this summer? Honestly, I don't think it affects it as much as we think it would. If you really look at our key signings, Kerwin Vargas was a guy that wasn't negotiated by Miguel. A lot of our top players, Carroll, Camille, aren't guys. I feel like these are guys that Miguel gave the green light to. It wasn't players that he specifically asked for or requested. So when it comes down to that, like, the buildup and the makeup of the squad that we have isn't just on Miguel.
Well, that's the sporting director's role, right?
Exactly.
He gets the players. He kind of builds that team he wants, right? And you try to find that coach that fits into that mold. And I think teams like LA, right? LAFC, I think, even they've gone through different coaches, but you kind of get the same coaches with the same philosophy at least.
100%.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
The hell, Charlotte, man. I was hoping for an easy night, man, an easy day today. Y'all some bitches screwed it up for me.
Yes.
Whatever.
There's a lot of comments, and keep
No,
them
that's okay.
coming.
Yeah. The
I want to
comments are
make
good.
sure that we take enough time to answer any questions that people have to the best of our abilities as well,
Yeah. Do we see Mars ever coming back? No.
No.
A vacation, maybe if we play him, if he ends up in the MLS gig. I mean, I know some teams could probably use a decent manager,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of spots in the MLS that probably could use a manager of his caliber, but I feel like the discussion about him going to Europe, I feel like that's got to be his thought process at this point. I mean, I feel like that was even discussed. I mean, back when the Athletic wrote about him, like that first year when he was at Independiente de Valle, and like they talked about him being this like coach that nobody had heard of, but he's going to be like a big, like super early on. That was in that first season. So, I mean, I feel like his plan had to be deep down.
Yeah.
Europe and
Carolyn's got a question. I'm not sure what she means about the two teams that don't have to be correlated. And then obviously the 5 and 2 project said whoever had Mars say we're screwed got him fired.
That was me. I haven't got to those yet because I'm looking through some, and this is good too. Like, wonder what the atmosphere is going to be at the next home game with so many speculations going on. That's a great question too. What do you?
I think
the overall sense of the fan base is that they hate this decision, right? And fair play. You know what? To a degree, I do too. And are we going to see a different tone, a different atmosphere? Because I think Miguel helped a lot in that as well. His relationship he built specifically with key people in the fan base and with the fan base in general as well, that made you think like, okay, like this is exciting. I want to go to Charlotte. I want to experience that atmosphere.
Yeah. I think a lot of the strong supporters will obviously show up, same as always. I don't think that'll change much, but I think on the fringes, at least from what I've seen on Twitter so far, a lot of more of the fringes, I feel like maybe short term, people who were thinking about showing up right out of or like hadn't been to a game yet or on the fence of like when to come to a Charlotte game might wait a little longer. I think that.
Yeah, I mean, it happens in football, right? Managers get fired. You see the fans get behind the players, right? As a fan, our job is to be behind the players, regardless of what's happening. The big thing that I saw a lot of people complaining about today was, again, we're going back to PSLs and this club's being run by a bunch of heathens and it's a big money grab and all that. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I really don't want to go down that road. But as a fan, it's my job to get behind the players. That's my club, right? When I think of the club, I don't think of the front office people, right? I think of the players on the pitch and the team in front of us. And I feel like we got to come out with the same energy. I mean, we can boo or whatever if you see Tepper or whoever, right? But at the end of the day, I still think we need to have that same energy we've been bringing in, week out, and show these boys some love and let them know that we got them.
100%. This is another great question by David, man. Will future managers want to come to Charlotte if we have a history for sacking managers?
I mean, they won't get sacked if they win. Well,
you know what? Like, I feel like Miguel wasn't we're losing, but was he really losing? You know what I'm saying?
To that question, if we really wanted a manager, you just flash some cash and that'll take care of that. Yeah. Right.
Well, I think also
a growing trend, then for sure.
Yeah.
Also, the next manager will be a telltale as well, because if you see similar issues where, hey, like this guy isn't getting the time or he's doing well, but all of a sudden gets sacked, right? Then it'll show you that, okay, like this continues to be more on the front office versus the person that we hired.
Yeah. So a shout out to Scott Smith. He's asking, other than Alcivar, Franco, and TT and Sergio, who were Mars's guys? Sergio wasn't a Mars guy, but was there anybody else other than Alcivar, Franco, or TT? I think that was about it, right?
No.
Sergio wasn't he a Mars? He was Academy, right? Las Palmas. That was
No, Sergio was our first player before we even had a manager.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I thought. Oh, I thought they might have known each
They
other.
just were from the same town or something, or
Yeah.
there was some connection back in the day. But
I'd really love to hear from a guy like Guzman Corujo, who could be considered a Mars guy. He wanted him here, right? He wanted him at Internacional as well. He's spoken really well of Corujo during the last couple of conferences as well, press conferences. He even said, you know what, like he's knocking at the door of the Uruguayan national team was one of the things that Miguel said, right? Now, if Corujo came out and I don't know, because you're putting him in a tough position as well. But I think a player like that gives you a telltale sign whether the locker room really did fall out with Miguel or not.
it's going to be tough for him, right? I'm sure there's going to be pro Mars and there's going to be like against Mars, right? And I don't know, why I would love to hear the players come out and say one way or the other. Like I really, if you're going to piss off some fan base, whichever way you go, right? And then that's going to turn nasty and it's going to grow like a cancer in the fan somewhere. I just don't think. I think what the players are doing, if they're supposed to be doing it or not, just being quiet right now is probably the best for them. Especially after that presser today. The presser was a joke.
And here's something that I saw that's not true as well. Someone posted that Zoran made all the players not say anything. Listen, I can tell you right now that that's cap. I've had players respond to me telling me that they don't want to make comments, right? So I mean, it's that to me was not true.
I mean, I wouldn't. I'm just trying to think if I was in that position. I mean, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd say anything, right?
There's that. There's you not wanting to say nothing versus someone telling you that they don't want you to say anything, right?
Again, I mean, big news today. Like you said at the beginning of the show, we're trying to work through all this speculation, right? There's a lot of speculation, a lot of bullshit. Everybody, I mean, even us, right? We're over here running our mouth about stuff, and we know enough about what's going on, and
we know enough to speculate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Right. So, I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't think this is all on Carroll either, though. I mean, to me, he is a bit of a diva. You kind of see him kind of getting upset on the pitch. I don't know how he is off the pitch. I'm sure he's a little arrogant, but overall, I think it's just more than Carroll. If it was a player kind of issue,
and that confused me too because I feel like Miguel was a huge Carroll advocate because it was starting to build up. Where in the press conferences, a lot of the time, people were asking me like, "Where are the goals coming from? Why isn't Carroll scoring?" Those questions were starting to come up, and Miguel was always really quick to defend him in terms of like he's doing all the little things and all these other stuff. Like Miguel was always like came to his defense pretty quickly in most pressers that I've seen, and so that also kind of took me by surprise that it might have been Carroll in that circumstance because I felt like he was like Miguel defended him several times when press would bring up the lack of scoring.
Right. Will the lack of communication here affect the trust of the supporters have with the club? I already feel that there's no trust between the club and the supporters.
Well, I think that was ruined when they announced PSLs.
That took a friction then, and after today, it was kind of like putting an RIP sign, right? Because you know what, like a lot of people tuned into this. A lot of people were expecting answers, and no answers were given. And when you do that, you lose a lot of the trust of the fan base. Even if your points are correct in maybe why you fired him, but the fact that you're not being transparent about it makes you question, makes you speculate.
That's the word of the day, folks.
Real, bro. It's true.
Yeah, that's the word of the day for sure.
Do you feel Latanzio will be the long-term manager if things go well, or will we try to find a permanent head coach regardless? This is a question I brought up to Zoran as well. So my understanding is that Latanzio is going to be given a shot.
He's on the clock.
He's on the clock. He's pretty much auditioning for this full-time head coach role for Charlotte FC. And here's the thing. I think that the Miguel personality and the Latanzio personality are
100%.
two polar opposites, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so while Miguel's very expressive and very like an emotional guy, I feel like Latanzio's a little bit more cool, more like a little bit warm, more stern. And so we'll see how that dynamic of coaching either helps or hinders the team, right? Because at the end of the day, we can talk about his time at New York City FC, but he's still an unproven person. He's still unproven at coaching at the highest level. And this is where we're actually going to see, right, if he actually is the guy that can take us forward or at least continue to steer the ship. And in my opinion, it is a very, very big, big gamble that the club is taking.
I think it would have to be like if they stayed at the same level, like fighting for a playoff spot come decision day at the end of the season. Like if he actually keeps Charlotte in like the 7th, 8th, 9th spot, I mean, I feel like we would have a decent chance of keeping the job, but it would have to be at least maintained, if not improve.
Yeah, and I think it's important the way that we play as well. You know what I'm saying?
It's definitely got to be, as long as we said it from day one, as long as we're competitive on the pitch, we can bitch about the back staff stuff. But I want to answer this question that you got up there, Jorge. I don't think he was underprepared. I think the club just took a stance and basically wasn't going to answer any questions, and they felt like they needed to have a face out there. And that goes back to what we said at the beginning. I think they would have just been better off leaving the club statement, waiting a few days, seeing how shit panned out, because again, at some point we're going to hear from Miggy's side of the fence. There's no doubt in my mind that that's not going to happen. So, I just think the idea or the decision to have a press conference was not a good one.
I think the decision to have a press conference and not be transparent hinders the club versus you had a coach who was known for being transparent, right? Who gave off that perception, right?
Yeah.
And when you have two stat, so Nick Kelly and Miguel, both people that the fan base really considered to be like relationship based with the fans, both in the same month, and then they get a real politically correct, just like blanket press conference from the staff after both of them have been fired, or I guess Nick just left, but like after losing two people that were really connected with the fan base and really like involved in that.
One person we need to check on and make sure he's doing okay is Sean, the CFO. I'm sure he is getting blasted today.
Yeah.
Sean, if you're watching, buddy, man, we appreciate the hard work you do, and keep it up.
Yeah. And I also don't think it's a last-minute decision. I mean, even even Zoran alluded to it today, where this is just a tough decision that they've been thinking about, right? And so I think it's something that's been planned for a little bit at least. It wasn't something that they decided to do today.
Well, I mean, we were kind of talking about that for a while, right? We kind of again, it all goes back to the "we're screwed" comment. Like, oh shit, how long is he gonna last now, right?
Right.
So.
And this is good too. Is it weird to y'all that none of the players have said anything about the situation, or were they told not to say anything? I believe that I don't think anyone specifically told them not to say anything. I do, however, see how players are put in a very difficult position if what's going on internally is really tough, right? Because if I'm a player and, certain players or the team has lost the locker room, I'm not going to come out and be overly put an awesome tweet about Miguel, and I'm also not going to, bash the guy. I feel like most of these players are going to be very Switzerland. They're going to be very neutral. They're not going to want to say much, right?
I wonder if Fuchs pulled everybody together and just had like a player meeting and said, right, as a collective, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, that might have been that's a good point too. That could happen. And what may happen in the future is that these key figures, or as a whole locker room, they start filtering out information that they want out there. Right, which is what I think. I think if things align up with how we're seeing them, that will actually happen.
Fair statement.
Over under how many games Miguel
Latanzio gets? Yeah, I think he gets the rest of the season. I mean, at this point, if we fire another coach, but I don't know, man. Unless some stellar manager comes in, but I think he gets the rest of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, or the bottom just completely drops out. But even then, like, I mean, what's the point of changing again? I mean, you might as well. I mean, it's half the season left, so
Well, I mean, if the bottom does fall out, at least we have some rebuttal on Twitter wars now.
yeah.
Another good question is why now? Why now? It just seemed like it got to a point where like they just had to pull the trigger. Like I said, I believe Miguel first lost the front office and then lost the players. And that combination of things was like, okay, like we gotta pull the trigger now. And honestly, it gives people enough time that now that he pulled the trigger, right? You've got 2 weeks. Some players are international duty. Some players have a couple of days off, stuff like this, right? To kind of, kind of try to steer the ship away from Miguel got fired to how do we move forward?
Yeah, yeah. It's the upcoming days are going to be interesting. The rest of this week's going to be interesting too. As more gets leaked out, folks have to say.
Yeah,
Yeah, is your Italian any good, Top Man?
it's not.
See.
It's not. All right, guys, I'm trying to go through a lot of these questions as well to see what some of the stuff that we do want to talk about as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, like there's comments in here about it. It was a good week, because obviously we got the international break, give a chance for some of this to die down. The players can kind of come together collective. I'm sure they. I mean, we say it right. They
100%. This is good. What changes does the new head coach need to make this season at least successful, even if we don't make playoffs? I don't think there's specifically too many tactical changes that he needs to make. I think he needs to stick to steering the ship, making sure that there's a healthy relationship between the players and a healthy relationship, I guess, with the front office if these are the issues that are going on, right? Because from a performance standpoint, we've already seen that this team can be competitive, right? It's not like we've been losing every game and, the teams just played like crap. Because you could tell, and this is another telltale sign too, where, Miguel's expectations for us was that the team was screwed. But if you really break down the squad that we have, it's a competitive squad. It's not the best squad in the MLS, but it's also not the worst squad in the MLS either.
Yeah. And I think another big thing is if we continue to see player growth, especially from some of our younger players, that also will be a huge thing. Like, right. If Ben Bender continues to be able to perform well and is set up for success and he ends up with a bunch of assists or something like that, or other like Jordi Alcivar continues to improve, things like that. I feel like if we see some of the young players develop and grow, like I think the growth piece is a huge part. If we continue to see our young pieces grow, it's a huge part.
100%.
Jorge, do you want to touch on this comment or you want me to touch on it?
You can go first. I'll answer after.
Yeah, I'm just going to say to comments like this, right? We try to be objective from both angles, right? From at this point, it's the manager and the front office, right? All we're trying to do is keep the discussion going, try to hear everybody's thoughts, speak about the team. And, there's going to be times where it sounds like we're sucking up to Tepper. And it's going to sound like there's times we're sucking up to the manager. Overall, me personally, I could give a crap about it, right? I just would like for our team to be competitive. And when I go to the game, I know that we're going to have a chance to win. So, new
Right.
coach, old coach,
Yeah.
front office or not, man, it's hard to walk this line in order to bring a dialogue between everybody.
100%. And I don't necessarily think it's true that he needs to suck up to management, but there has to be a relationship. We're not gonna build a successful squad if there's not a relationship between the front office, a relationship between the players, and a relationship between the coach at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, there's things that we've criticized the club that we felt has done wrong today, right? And I think if we see the same trend again with the next manager of some of the things that are going on, we'll be able to hit the front office a little harder because it's not an isolated situation where a lot of it has to deal with the coach. Now it's okay, there's even more issues with the front office. And like we've mentioned, we've seen that there's already issues with the front office, right? With all these changes that have happened.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I don't know. Like I always get beat up on Twitter at least because it sounds like, but it's like the narrative goes one direction, and I just tried to bring in other thoughts to the conversation, not so much that I pick one side or the other. Again, it goes back to I want my team to win. You know, being a Spurs fan, it's never happened in my life. Be Charlotte, you're my last hope. I need you guys to be decent on the pitch.
This is a great question as well. Do you think the new head coach plays the same style, building out the back, or does he take a more methodical approach to reshaping the team? Listen, Latanzio has to stick with the style of play of having that possession-based, aggressive, attacking-minded football, right? That's the philosophy that we've been told that we want to play. That's the philosophy that we were playing under Miguel. And to me, it would not make sense for him to change the approach. I think he would be going into the wrong direction if he did that.
Well, I would imagine that would be also a reason why he was there as the assistant in the first place. It's not like they would bring in an assistant who had a completely different philosophy. Like I feel like they're going to be philosophically pretty similar. And NYCFC played like that. Like they've played pretty aggressive. Like
I mean, if anything, right? He's not going to come out next week when we play at home and be like, all right, all of a sudden we're doing this new formation, right? If anything, it's going to be a slow progression to his style of play. But again, like we've said, you know, it's everybody's got the same philosophy. At the end of the day, Zoran is building the team, and the coaches that he has in is more to play along the lines of how he wants to see us play. Right? So,
100%. You guys are doing a great job. I try to find the truth, but the club, yeah, bro, that's my biggest critique with this club as well, bro. Like, yo, you're not doing a great job of being transparent with us, and it makes it more difficult for us to actually be able to, you know what, like, even if what we're hearing is true, like I have to triple and double check to make sure that, you know what, it aligns up, right?
yeah. Or it's a solid, educated guess, right?
Yeah, that too. What is it? What makes it weird is there's no thank you Mar post from the club signifying also that foe resents him, maybe.
And in a roundabout way, there was in the statement. If you read the statement they put out, they wish him well, I believe is the
It's a
comment.
cold statement, bro.
What's that?
It's a very cold statement.
I mean, it's a typical PR statement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they fired the guy. It's not like we're going to go out and have lunch and say, enjoy your retirement.
Yeah, you know what? And I kind of agree with most of this as well. I mean, he's our very first coach, bro. Like, I think whether you like him or not, Miguel brought something to this team. He brought a great relationship with the fan base. He brought, a good style of playing.
Fair.
Well, and he remained as competitive where people thought we were going to be the laughing stock of the MLS, albeit partially because of him. We proved a lot of people wrong, right?
Yep. And he brought an expectation to win almost in a lot of situations that I think most expansion teams wouldn't expect they would have a chance. But I think he brought this expectation to win in even really unlikely circumstances. Like the Seattle game on Sunday. Like I feel like a lot of fans were like, especially once we went up 1-0, I had no expectation of any result in that game. And then we went up 1-0 and I was like, man, this is wild. Like this is wild. I could not believe that this was happening.
I'm going to dial back my last comment. I mean, yeah, the statement was cold. You're right, Jorge, man. I guess I would think that come the end of the season, regardless of how we finish, right, the club will probably give some sort of shout out to Mars, right, and kind of make it more loving and warming than what it has been the last 24 hours at least.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take that and spin that comment as far as you want.
Right? Is it odd that many of the backroom staff was let go? Honestly, from things that I don't want to share just yet, it's not. And so
no, I mean, even if you think about it, typically when other teams fire coaches, right? I mean, they normally leave with their posse, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a Cindy Heidi's in the chat.
Yeah, for real. And I do think there's an interesting I'm curious to see what the dynamic between Latanzio and Miguel was. I think Latanzio wanted a chance also to be a head coach, right? Like, but maybe he didn't think it would be with Charlotte, but the situation just turned where like, okay, this is your opportunity.
Yeah.
He's been an assistant for a long time. It was like, what, 5 or 6 seasons or something like that? Like, he's been an assistant for several years.
Yeah. I mean, this is his next step, right?
Yeah.
100%.
It's there.
And that's the last question I have. What can we expect out of this team? What is everybody's expectations for Charlotte FC going forward? Because that was a question I had, man. Like, we want to build a winning culture, and it seems like this is a regression, right? So I want people's thoughts in the comments and thoughts from you guys as well.
Yeah.
I think, again, like I said earlier, the growth piece. I think if Kerwin, like, how does Kerwin Vargas perform in this situation, right? How does he get Kerwin Vargas to show up? Like, do players like him come in and he finds them success and they start scoring goals and playmaking? Like, it seems like Kerwin, like, especially, I think Kerwin's a perfect example of that, because he hasn't. I mean, he's shown us some potential, and like especially that pass on Sunday was just incredible. But so players like him, can Ben Bender continue to improve? Joey Alcivar, I think, is another big. I think certain like key young playmakers can continue to show up, no matter what the end record is. It's like, okay, we've got some pieces to play with moving forward long term.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a much difference, at least on the pitch, right? I mean, definitely the press conferences are not going to have that stinging line that we're all used to seeing.
My views are about to go down, bro.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that, bro. But I mean, again, he's been there since day one, right? He's basically been in the philosophy. He's got the players. He knows who does what, who's bad at what they need to work on. I don't see much of a difference. I just, I don't know if he dresses as well as Mars did. I mean, because, he came with some drip. And, at the end of the day, I think we're still going to be right in the mix of playoffs. And, maybe we'll win the U.S. Open Cup now. Kidding.
Yeah, man. I honestly, from my perspective, this turns this season into an anomaly for me, man. I honestly don't know what to expect, right? With Miguel Angel, I knew what to expect in terms of what I felt like the team was providing. With Latanzio, man, I have no idea. My thing is, I just hope he sticks to the style of play and is able to heal whatever broken pieces there are inside of that club, right? And to someone's point, like, he doesn't need to be a yes man to the front office, but he needs to learn how to have a good relationship and also establish himself, because he's kind of now the dynamic is back to Zoran kind of having all the power, right? If it was indeed a power struggle that there was, right? And he's kind of more dealing with, how do I make successful with the pieces I have versus this is what I want and how I want it to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, Charlotte FC fans, we're right there with you. Let's give it all we got when we're in the stadium cheering our team on. And, let's back those players the best we can.
100%. Any final thoughts from you, my man, Brian?
No, I think I think what Lee said earlier about it being the support and the fans, it's about the players, right? About the players who are wearing the kit on the pitch, and we support them at the end of the day because they're the ones playing the game that we love to watch. And so I think that that was the big statement and takeaway for me, is like, there's a ton of other stuff that happens, right? There's the business side, the PSLs, the money back and forth, all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, like, we like to show up and sing and chant and see the game.
Yep.
And that's the players that are involved in that. And so, like, I would love to see. I think this is one of the first big tests for the fan base for that New York June 11th game.
Yeah, that is, man.
Them show up.
Because today,
but if we show up through this, I mean, I think we're good. Like, I think the fan base is legit, like legit.
100%, man. I think today is a really, really dark day. And you know what? It could be one of those dark days, kind of like when Miguel said we're screwed. And you know what? Looking back, like, man, we're not screwed.
We're not.
Maybe today is a day where it feels like we're screwed because we lost a very key component in us being successful, in my opinion. And you know what? Maybe we look at the end of this season and we are in a playoff spot and we're still competitive, right? But at the end of the day, I think only time will tell.
Yep.
Hopefully, you know what? I mean, Charlotte really does need to learn a little bit in terms of how to communicate with the team. And I think you're right, Brian. They need to find another person, another Nick Kelly-esque, Miguel-esque person to be able to be a good communicator between the club and the fan base that's actually going to, like take time to respond, be able to, give the fan base. I feel like that's something that's needed, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like Sean at this point. Sean's like the only one really left. It's like that key figure who's been there pretty much the whole time, in terms of that connection there. So I think that is going to be a huge void that needs to be filled.
Yep.
100%. Guys, thank you so much for hopping on. Obviously, as I expected, we're going to have record numbers tonight. It was like over 120 people on at one point. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Really, listen, guys, I really, really appreciate how much trust that you guys put into me. And that, I don't want to say it gives me pressure, but it makes me want to be able to find the best information and provide it to you guys and not just come on here and rattle off random things.
Yep.
Right? Lee,
Go
ahead.
I was going to say, kind of ditto to what you said, right? I mean, we're out here grinding. We're doing this because we love the sport. We love Charlotte, right? And just having you guys just hit the sub button, the like button, retweets, whatever, right? Follow us. That is all we ask, and that goes a long way for us. You can find me at CLTFC Fan TV. We're actually going to continue this conversation tomorrow night, so we wanted a chance for some more news to kind of come out and flush out. So, yeah, join us at 9 p.m. on our YouTube channel, and then all the socials and out there in the streets, man, come find us. And can't wait for the fan reactions after the game, man, when we actually get the interview and see what kind of answers we get there. So, yeah, man, Top Bin, man, keep doing you, man. You're doing big stuff, man, and I appreciate what you're doing for the community.
100%, man. And also, Brian, he is going to be I wish our website would have launched today. It would have been perfect. But he's definitely going to be working with Top Bin 90 a lot, and you'll see a lot of articles. A lot of the stuff that I've read from Brian, and I've talked to him already, he works really, really hard, and he kind of fits into that DNA and ethos of what I want out of Top Bin 90, and he'll be doing a lot of work for us as well in terms of the writing piece.
Yep.
Yeah, really, really pumped to be involved. Really just pumped to be involved. And Jorge, I appreciate you having me on. And Jorge, I appreciate you letting me be involved in writing for the website. I think that's really what I prefer personally, doing more than a lot of the other social media stuff. I prefer the long form content. I think that's, for me, where we kind of find, like we talked about earlier, like the objective truth and the facts. I think conversations like this, even though we had to do a lot of speculating in some respect, we still had to we still work through some of the just all the noise that was today. And
the noise it is.
There's no better way to kind of to do that than in this kind of long form video format, and then in writing too. That's kind of like my bread and butter. So I hope y'all check out some of the stuff as it comes out. You can find me also on Twitter at BA Media.
100%. And with that, another episode of the MLS Corner ends. Guys, it's going to be an interesting few weeks. But guess what? We're in the MLS. We're here to make noise. We're here to hopefully do great things. You guys have a great night. Woo!
We're here because we're here.